my friends, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and today is going to be a grab bag episode because there's a handful of things that we need to talk about. Some of this stuff is, what we normally talk about. You got Nehemiah here, Nehemiah chapter 8. There's some stuff that I want to look at there, but also we have some housekeeping things. And to lead things off, I have a personal favor that I want to do for you. It's a favor in the form of knowledge, but it's knowledge that's going to make your life better. My wife and I, we went to a Dollar General the other day. It was a beautiful Dollar General, incredibly well run. It was in Black Hawk, South Dakota, and there were highly competent young gentlemen there who handled their business very well. The store was clean. It looked great. We get up to the front with the ballpoint pens that we needed to purchase for $1, and what do I see? There's a whole container, a great big giant box of a beloved candy that I've appreciated since forever. Listen to it. See if you can tell what candy it is just by the box. Can you tell? It's Mike and Ikes. And it's not the normal Mike and Ikes, because the normal Mike and Ikes have 3 flavors in them that nobody wants. Nobody wants the lemon. Nobody wants the lime. And the kind of orange mango thing. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You're there for the red ones. Well, this is Mike and Ike Cherry. That's right. It's only the cherries. And this is a 0.8 ounce box. They're selling these suckers 3 for 99 cents, like when you were a kid. It's unbelievable. I bought the whole thing. So if you go to the one in Black Hawk, South Dakota, you're not getting any of these. But if you go to a different one, you can get 3 for 99 cent boxes of Mike and Ike's like when you were a kid. And they're all the cherries. So you don't have to throw away the green ones or the yellow ones or pawn them off on your kid sister to make it seem like you're generous when actually you just want to get rid of those. That was thing number 1. Thing number 2, Nehemiah chapter 8. We just spent a bunch of time looking back through the Old Testament at the great big grand giant meetings that the descendants of Abraham who were alive at any given time had. And what we see as a pattern from all of these meetings is that every time that happens, there's some sort of a renewal of commitment to the covenant and to God and his law and to following after him as king and to emulating his character. There's a whole big giant religious revival that happens every time we have one of these meetings. But what we also saw is that on the tail end of all of those meetings, it doesn't take too long. And the people who were so emphatic about what they were going to do, they failed to pass that sense of commitment on to ensuing generations. And it seems that within a generation or two of each of these great big grand meetings, the people are right back to where they started. So there's a question as we come toward the end of the narrative part of the Old Testament with the books of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. And the question is, will it ever be any different? Now, last time around, I made the closing remark that the answer is really no. It won't ever be any different. We could do this cycle until the end of time. Have great big giant meetings, say how sorry we are for things, say we're going to do things different and better from now on, and then it's human nature. You just tank out again and again. And this isn't just a religious observation I'm making. This isn't just a Bible observation or a theological observation. This is an observation that sociologists make as well. You remember what were their names? Dang it! We talked about this, Strauss and Howe, the Strauss-Howe generational theory. This is one of many theories that looks at the ebbs and flows of history, not just amongst Jewish people, either amongst everybody. And what they see is there's a clear turnover. There's a cycle of generational commitment to historic values and things that work. And eventually what happens is that good ideas foster good times. High character makes for good times and social trust. That makes for easy times. And then another generation comes along that gets bored and wants to push the boundaries of the standards and the social contract that made things good times in the first place. That makes for bad times. And then it takes a new stout generation to overcome those challenges to make something good again. And admittedly, sometimes these ideas are used as a cudgel in the nonsensical intergenerational social warfare that happens now. I'm not trying to jab at that at all. What I am saying is that it's a thing. It's totally a thing, and it's always been a thing since the dawn of time. It's a thing that's recorded in the Bible. It's a thing that's recorded by extra-biblical historians. Herodotus thought this was how things worked. Big picture, whatever good things come out of this religious revival that we're fixing to have here in the last third of the book of Nehemiah, It's not ultimately going to hold because human nature says it won't hold forever, but that doesn't mean that it's not a really meaningful thing in the time that we're looking at and that we shouldn't appreciate and celebrate what's going on there. With that sense of realistic optimism, we'll be picking it back up in Nehemiah chapter 8 next time around. But as I said before, this is a grab bag episode, and I mentioned a moment ago Herodotus, the ancient historian. And there's been a bit of business that you and I have needed to do for a long time here. I just keep forgetting to come back to it. You remember maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago? I don't even know now. When I said, I was reading some more stuff from Herodotus, and there was a little passage in here about the customs of the Persians that I hadn't caught before that I think is really relevant to the stuff we did in our last season in the book of Esther, particularly as it pertains to the tense relationship between Mordecai and Haman. Haman, the Persian official, had certain expectations for how Mordecai would treat him. Mordecai did not treat Haman in the way he wanted to be treated, and it escalated to nuclear levels. And I found a passage in Book 1 of the Histories by Herodotus, section 134, that I think maybe speaks to that scenario a little bit and what would have been expected. This is Herodotus talking now about his journeys through Persia and how the Persians act. It says, when they meet one another in the roads, you may discern whether those who meet are of equal rank by this etiquette. For instead of greeting by words, they kiss one another on the mouth. But if one of them is a little inferior, they kiss one another on the cheeks. And if one is of much less noble rank than the other, he falls down before him and prostrates himself. And they honor most after themselves those nations which dwell nearest to them, and next those which dwell next nearest. And so they go on, giving honor in proportion to distance, and they hold least in honor those who dwell furthest off from themselves, esteeming themselves to be by far the best of all the human race in every point, and thinking that others possess merit according to the proportion which is here stated, and that those who dwell furthest from themselves are the worst. Super interesting, right? There's a clear protocol for how you greet people, and the idea, according to Herodotus, is that everybody knew where everybody ranked, which means it would be weird if you had one way of interacting with a person where both of you held a certain rank for a long period of time, and one was expected to fall in front of the other every time they walked by. It's like, well, that's just how it is. But then what happens when somebody gets promoted after you get used to that? Well, now all of a sudden, instead of that guy being face down in the dust, you're having to exchange mutual kisses on the cheek to indicate, well, we're of the same social or noble rank now. And what happens then if somebody comes to outrank you, or you both make it to elite status? Now you're kissing on the mouth? I don't know. That it's a different time. Persia, I don't really know what to say. It's just what it says in the book. It's a very old book. That's what Herodotus wrote down. I just think it's really interesting that there was such a clear pecking order and such a clear demonstrative public set of gestures in terms of how you communicate that you understand that pecking order. And apparently Mordecai greatly transgressed that expectation. But there's a second level to that social tension as well, that being that the Persians, according to Herodotus, viewed their homeland as the epicenter of human enlightenment and human culture. And the further away from that you got, the less they esteemed you. Well, beyond the river, or clear out in Jerusalem where the Jews are from, that is a long, long, long ways away. So that would mean that Haman would have disdain for the Jews, or a lesser regard for the Jews, as would anybody living in the capital city. And that would be something they would have to work hard to overcome. That is, the Jews would have to work hard to overcome. And so that's kind of an interesting reflection back on the words of Jeremiah, where he's telling the soon-to-be exiles, hey, you got to really live well in your new community, live well in exile, work for the benefit of the city. It's almost like God was anticipating this Persian cultural habit 100 years before Persia was even the empire of concern or empire of record, and had Jeremiah the prophet relay this to set the Jews up for success in that environment, to overcome the natural bias against them that would exist among the Persians because of what Herodotus is saying right here. Isn't that interesting? We should do grab bag episodes more often. You're probably thinking, that was 3 different segments in one episode. There can't possibly be any more. It's just too much goodness. But you'd be wrong. Because in fact, there is a fourth thing that we need to talk about. Actually, this is one where I'm just going to ask you a favor. I just started a YouTube channel. I would say it's a new one, but it's actually super, super old. I've just never used it for anything. It is labeled the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. It is this podcast. YouTube now allows you to take, this is all super technical. You probably don't care. They allow you to take the code, the RSS feed that makes a podcast happen and upload it to YouTube. So I have done that. I got 2 YouTube channels. One is the one that I've been doing forever that used to be called the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Now it's just my name, Matt Whitman. That's the one where I go and visit churches, where we did the series on Acts back in the day. There's funny stuff on there. That's still there, and it's got, a pretty nice amount of subscribers. You'll be able to tell that's the one that we've been doing forever. But then there's another YouTube channel linked in the description below. This one has got the little lightning bolt TMBH logo on it. I don't think it has my face on it, and it doesn't really have a lot of views or anything. There's not very many subscribers because it's brand new. But what this will allow you to do is, if you used to use Google Podcasts to listen to this program, now you'll be able to use the replacement for that. Google canceled that service. Now I think they're doing all their podcasts through YouTube Music. In order for me to participate in that, I needed to make a YouTube channel and upload all of my podcasts to that. So YouTube is now just one more place where this podcast will appear. This is meant to be audio only. It'll always be audio only, but it'll look a little different on YouTube. Otherwise, you'll be hearing all the same words and all the same content. So here's the favor I would like to ask. Whether you would like to use YouTube to listen to this podcast or not, would you do me the hugest of favors and take just a moment to go and subscribe to that channel? Getting to certain thresholds, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, it opens up different things that I can do with that channel to get in front of more people and have more options for how I organize it and make it more user-friendly. So your subscription would be a gigantic help over there. Maybe even click on a couple of those to signal to the algorithm that people are using it, and it's going to be a thing moving forward, because right now it's just 1,400 videos on that channel representing all the episodes we've ever done together, all with roughly 0 views. So it looks pretty emotionally desperate over there for me right now, which I can live with. It's not entirely false. But the point of all of this is Dollar General has Mike and Ikes 3 for 99 cents, and they're just the cherry kind, so you probably got to go get those. This has been a fun day. Thank you in advance for considering checking out the new YouTube channel that has this podcast on it and even subscribing to it. And more on Nehemiah chapter 8 next time around. All right, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.